say or how to answer when questions or discussions come up concerning the Bible and today's worldview? Well, maybe it's time to step up and step into your faith. Hello, and welcome to the Chaplain's Corner, where we expound upon the truth of God's Word, present actual scientific, archaeological, and historical arguments, and provide common sense answers in facing the challenges of today's anti-biblical arguments. We hope you will join us in learning more about defending your faith with truth, just for the record. And now, here's Chaplain Randall.
Good afternoon and welcome to our show. Welcome back to our show. I trust all of you had a great Thanksgiving and a blessed time worshiping and celebrating what Thanksgiving is about and what it's for. And it was established in 1864 or 65, I believe it was, by President Abraham Lincoln as an official holiday. So this is Radio Show 85. What are whale fossils doing in the Andes Mountains? Covering up the evidence of dinosaurs, plus evidence of how the flood happened, and pyramids underwater. All of that is today. We will cover that. And shout-outs, of course, go to my beautiful wife, Madeline, and our wonderful son, Judah. He's so stinking cute. Carlene, hope you're tuning in, and Chris, Chaplains Felipe, and Steve, and a host of others. Thank you so much for tuning in. Prayers always go out, of course, to Joan and Kimmy. We still pray for you and hope, Joan, that you're getting stronger and can come to church. And Kimmy, keep the faith. Todd for his mobility with his recent back surgery. My friends Melissa with her headaches. And pray for a woman named Julia who has somewhat estranged herself from her family. Pray the Lord will convict her, take her away her pride, her selfishness, the victim mentality, and realize that people are more important than animals. Prayers go out for Megan, who has PAH, which is pulmonary arterial hypertension, which could be deadly. And for John, who experienced PTSD after being attacked at work, our prayers go out for them and that they be strengthened. Now, C.S. Lewis said, if Christianity, if false, is of no importance, and if true, of infinite importance, the only thing it cannot be is moderately important. Now, what are whale fossils doing in the Andes Mountains, of all things? Well, we look to Genesis 7:19 for that, where it said, "And all the hills that were under the whole heaven were covered." And what were they covered in? They were covered in water. And we're talking about the flood in Genesis 6:9 through chapter 8, verse 22. The flood with Noah's Ark. And an article on Bible.org reads, "The world knows little about the Bible, but few are unaware of Noah's Ark. There are jokes about it, pictures of it, movies about the search for the ark, even ceramic representations of it. A knowledge of the flood is almost universal, even apart from the biblical account of the book of Genesis. But it seems as if we must conclude that the Genesis flood at least engulfed all of mankind, if not the whole earth, because of certain indications in the Genesis narrative and because on all continents and among almost all peoples of the earth, flood accounts have been found. These accounts all refer to a destructive flood occurring early in the respective tribal histories. In each case, one or a few individuals were saved and were charged with repopulating the earth. To date, anthropologists have collected between 250 and 300 such flood stories from different cultures and tribes and peoples. Now, the non-believing world and atheists will use the argument, see how cruel God is to commit genocide? Now, that's not a loving God. And to those I would ask, and you expect love from God without love being reciprocated by those rebelling against and claiming there is no God? That's a rather hypocritical stance, isn't it? The article goes on to say, let us be very clear about the righteousness of Noah. It was that righteousness which resulted from faith. By faith, Noah, being warned by God about things not yet seen, in reverence prepared an ark for the salvation of his household, by which he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness which is according to faith. We read that in Hebrews 11:7 in the New Testament. It was not Noah's works which preserved him from judgment, but it was God's grace. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord, Genesis 6:8 says. Salvation has always been by grace through faith, not of works, but unto good works. Ephesians 2:8 through 10. In contrast to Noah's righteousness was man's rottenness. Now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked on the earth, and behold, it was corrupt. For all flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth. Genesis 6:11 and 12. That makes it pretty clear. All flesh was corrupt. It was filled with violence. And not only violence, but corrupted in the way of sexual immorality and in every possible corruption out there. Lies, stealing, murdering. They were not following the 10 Commandments. In fact, it got so bad they didn't even believe in God, as we see much of America has turned to that these days. Now Noah alone was righteous in his day. Then the Lord said to Noah, "Enter the ark, you and all your household, for you alone I have seen to be righteous before me in this time." That's Genesis 7:1. Now, I was thinking about this too. We always hear about Noah and his 3 sons and their wives and Noah's wife, but once they landed, we never hear any more about the family. And it said Noah alone was righteous in his day. So apparently his righteousness perhaps covered the righteousness of his family for his sons, or maybe his sons believed and they obeyed Noah, their father, even though he was, they were grown men and they had wives. Maybe they had kids too. I don't know. It doesn't say that. It just says that Noah and his 3 sons and their wives entered. So if men were living hundreds of years back in the day, as Noah was, as it records, that's a lot of time to create a lot of kids, to procreate. And there we have 3 sons and their wives, and so cousins were marrying cousins, etc., etc. So enter the ark, and you and all your household, for you alone have seen to be righteous before me in this time. The source of water seems supernatural. It may well be that it had never rained before, of course. We reference that with Genesis 2, verse 6. And now the rain came in torrents. In addition, the fountains of the deep, chapter 7, verse 11, were opened. Water both from above and below came forth for 40 days. That's chapter 7, verse 12. Which brings me to this point, the fountains of the deep. In 2014, scientists discovered a massive reservoir of water trapped in rocks under the ocean floor, and also found evidence of oceans deep within the earth. Whoever could have imagined such a thing? And a meme that goes, this is from Biblical Creation Evidence, and a meme that goes along with it, one man's telling another, scientists have recently discovered large pools of water beneath the ocean floor. And the other guy says, I've known that all my life. And he says, you couldn't have known. It's a recent discovery. And then he quotes from the Bible, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, that same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened, from Genesis 7:11. Fountains of the deep. People said, well, where's all this water come from? Well, you can't be that much rain. Well, now we see proof once more that modern day research has proven that there are oceans and oceans of water underneath, in the middle of the earth, underneath the oceans that are already present, and the fountains of the deep opened up. The Bible mentions the fountains of the deep several times, and during the flood we're told God opened the fountains of the deep, suggesting seismic activity. When God ended the flooding, we are told that God closed the fountains of the deep, suggesting that they continue to exist, albeit with less water than at creation. In 1997, scientists said they may have found an astonishing reservoir of water deep in the earth. The water they believe they found does not exist in huge underground oceans. The water is tied up in minerals, held there by the tremendous pressures and temperatures deep in the earth. Researchers have shown, for example, what a mineral called wadsleyite, which exists only at temperatures above 1800 degrees Fahrenheit and is found as deep as 400 miles below the Earth's surface, can still hold water. Scientists have figured that if 60% of this layer is wadsleyite, as seismic data indicate, it could contain enough water to fill 10 oceans. Now, this was in 1997. And then what I just read you was in 2014, where they've discovered massive reservoirs of water trapped in rocks under the ocean floor. So that's more. There's more than enough. And you think about, scientists have gone on, it said scientists have figured that if 60% of this layer is wadsleyite, it could fill 10 oceans. Researchers have also analyzed the amount of this water that is brought to the surface during volcanic eruptions and concluded from their findings that there could be enough water. Okay, here it is. I didn't read far enough down. To enough water deep in the earth to fill 30 oceans. 30. That's 30 oceans. That's amazing, and shows you with that discovery how it makes sense. The fountains of the deep were opened up. Seismic activity, tectonic plates. Can you imagine the shifting that caused all that under the water and all those tectonic plates shifting, land masses changing, and even after the fact when water receded, the shifting that still took place when you consider the animal life on certain continents such as kangaroos and wallabies in Australia. How did they get there? Well, they had to migrate. They had to get there at some point, and then when it was still a landmass, and then it broke away with more seismic activity. Now, it boggles my mind that now we see it. The fountains of the deep opened up and changed everything on the way the earth looked. Now, this is not the first time we've spoken about the flood on here, but there is so much evidence that continues to surface showing and proving the reality of Noah's flood, as it is popularly referred to, such as the Kirkdale Cave in England. Have you heard of it? Right. Not many have, because it doesn't fit the evolutionary theory. That has been going on for the past 200 plus years. That secular scientists, or those are people who do not believe there is a God and try everything they can to produce and create a storyline of how we exist rather than give in to the biblical account of creation. They originally published in Journal of Creation 11, number 2, printed in August 1997, pages 221 through 252, stated, largely overlooked by modern historians, the scriptural geologists in Britain in the first half of the 19th century tenaciously defended Genesis 1 through 11 as a reliable historical account, including the Noachian flood as a global catastrophe. One secular scientist stated, geology as the science of Earth, maybe I should do an English accent. Geology as the science of Earth history is prone to controversy. The study of history of any kind depends upon documents and records. For the history of the Earth's crust, these documents are the rocks, and their reading and the interpretation are often difficult operations. Maybe I won't do that again. During one such controversy in the first half of the 19th century in Britain, a tenacious and denominationally eclectic band of naturalists and clergymen, and some were both, opposed the new geological theories being developed at the time, which said that the Earth was millions of years old. These men became known as scriptural geologists, mosaic geologists, or Bible literalists. So, as modern society became ever fuller of themselves, they drifted away from the Bible and the things of God. Romans 1, 22, 23, and 25 explains, professing to be wise, they became as fools and traded the glory of the incorruptible God for the likeness of an image of corruptible man, who exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshipped and served the creation rather than the Creator, who is blessed and should be praised forever. Amen. A huge example of what has been ignored by the atheists and others who bowed to peer pressure, like William Buckland. With the Kirkdale Cave in England, this famous cave in Yorkshire, England, is known for its huge array of animal fossils such as hyenas, bears, tigers, wolves, elephants, rhinos, hippos, horses, ox, deer, rabbit, mice, and various birds. I didn't know all those kind of animals roamed England. Perhaps they didn't. It was once deemed great flood evidence as supported by early geologist William Buckland, who lived from 1784 to 1856. He influenced and taught other famous geologists, such as Charles Lyell, who later turned against the Bible and was quoted as wanting to free the science from Moses. It was his own colleagues who got Buckland to abandon his faith, later calling Noah's flood tranquil and geologically insignificant. Are you kidding me? Buckland eventually changed his views on Kirkdale Cave and claimed all the animal remains there must have been dragged in by hyenas. Right. Evidence for creation and the flood is becoming so overwhelming that evolutionists have no other choice than to admit to it indirectly. So it wasn't a meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs. It was the flood. You see, the thing that they never come up with to prove the meteor story is finding any dinosaurs that were torn apart by the percussion of such an impact that can end life around the whole Earth. We never see, is a dinosaur bone lying way over there, and a mile away we found the rest of parts of it, Instead, what we get are fossils and in pristine condition that only a flood could achieve. Then we have dinosaur mass graves where you could tell that water brought them all together into a shallow area, whereas water receded, that's where they remained. Not a meteor impact, which would have to tear them all to pieces. And I've got photos here, 5 different photos of dinosaurs embedded into rock, and all of them are the same way. Their spine is turned up, their mouths are open, they're gasping for air, and they're in the death throes as they gasp for air and try to live, and they're compacted, they're drowned and covered under layers. So... And then there's the dinosaur graveyard, which also further leads to this. I can't even say it's a theory with all the evidence to this proof of finding. Dinosaur National Monument is located in my home state on the Colorado and Utah border. It is a gigantic time capsule from a very catastrophic event that occurred, killing the approximately 1,500 dinosaurs encased in rock there, including the well-known Stegosaurus, Allosaurus, Apatosaurus, Ceratosaurus, Torvosaurus, Camarasaurus, a Barosaurus, and a I kept practicing this earlier. Diplodocus. Well, you get the gist, to name a few. It also contains alligators, turtles, fish, wood, plant matter, frogs, and freshwater clams. So you have this huge jumble that is so large that they built a huge hangar over it. That doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that it took a ton of water and sediment to bury these animals. And they're all together. They're not encased in different layers of millions of timeline layers. They're all together there in one mass. Some of these dinosaurs are as tall as a medium-sized building, not to mention the jumble of sea life all mixed in with it. This took a flood, a big flood, which proves the Bible is always right. And speaking of Noah's Ark, the article was called Safety Investigation of Noah's Ark in a Seaway. Creation.com came up with this, how about modern tankers copy Noah's Ark technology. This was taken from Peter Erbacher's How the Bible Destroyed My Religion. Korean naval ship engineers conducted a test of seagoing vessel using dimensions on a ratio of 1/50 to Noah's Ark. They found the vessel to be incredibly stable in rough seas. Their research led to tankers developing similar ratios, drastically reducing their tendency to capsize in violent seas. So, if not God-inspired, how could Noah have possibly devised plans for such a sturdy ship appropriate for the task? Coincidence? Highly unlikely. There is a great conspiracy that says this was not from wind, sand, rain, stone, scavenging, but, I'll change the subject right here, the Khafre Pyramid at Giza was under sea for a long time. Well, not really change its subject, just a different part of it. There was karst undercutting erosion of the Tura limestone cap of the Khafre Pyramid at Giza. The erosion turns up parabolically at both ends. So it's got a curve to it. It starts up and then it curves down and then back up like a sea wave. that erosion that seems to have been caused by seawater. The limestone used in the pyramid's casing, which is Tura limestone, is vulnerable to erosion when exposed to seawater. The limestone used in the pyramid's casing, it is what is exposed to that, while the limestone used in the structure itself, Mokattam limestone, is more durable. So the underlayer was there, and the outer layer looks like it eroded from water. The erosion patterns match what you'd expect if the pyramid were submerged in seawater, with waves averaging about 6 to 8 feet high. The water level responsible for this erosion is thought to have reached a height of 576 feet above sea level. This erosion is centered around a specific height on the pyramid, which suggests that it was caused by a large-scale flood or inundation, either global or regional. That'd be an awful big flood if it was regional. And now we're in a debate segment. A fellow believer posted this on a Facebook page, Men Who Follow Christ group. He said, "What do you all think of this comment taken from my personal page about Christianity?" Somebody answered him and says, "Saved from what? Christianity can be and is a very traumatic indoctrinatory subject for many, many peoples across the planet. Christians stripped, depraved, raped, and even murdered countless peoples of their oftentimes nature-based spiritual practices, beliefs, and rituals for power and control over them. It worked and obviously still does. I perceive it as a dark practice personally, but I'm not going to claim you need saved from it because it works for you in some reason or another, and I have no desire to go around saying that those who aren't in alignment with my spiritual values need saved or even need to read or study what works for me ever. I feel doing so would delegitimize any spiritual meaning or purpose it had to begin with." So my answer was this. Number one, they're confusing Christianity with the history of the Catholic Church. Christians never did those atrocities, such as the Inquisition, burning so assumed heretics, or even witches at the stake, but those duped in the Catholic dogma believed it, were ordered to, and did it. Number two, this person's knowledge of history is very lacking because often it was nature-based pagan practices that raped, murdered, warred against, and sacrificed untold numbers. And just in case he's referring to events in early America, these practices were waging between local tribes for centuries before Pilgrims, Puritans, pioneers, and the U.S. government came to be. Comanches massacred Apaches, driving them further into the Southwest, while the Sioux forced out their homelands, the Crow, Blackfeet, and Shoshones, and others, committing genocide against the Arikara tribe. In more recent history, all the wars and over 100 million deaths in the last century were because of anti-godly ideologues wanting to rule over others, not Christians. And number three, no one is forcing you to do or change anything. And because I may share a truth with you that I have learned and believe is essential in applying to everyone, doesn't mean you have to accept it. In the words of R.C. Sproul, I'm just one beggar trying to show another beggar where the water is. If you're not thirsty, you don't have to drink it. It's your choice. God lovingly provided a way and warning everyone about the consequences of sin in not following him, which leaves you without excuse come Judgment Day. Number four, you apparently have no desire to prevent anyone from spending eternity in hell or care because you don't believe in it. And that's because your flesh cannot understand what is spiritual. Therefore, you see no urgency and you don't care what happens to yourself or others in an afterlife. The history of the Bible, eyewitness accounts, secular accounts, proof of miracles, people being healed, scientific evidence of creation and the flood, archaeological findings, Jesus' Great Commission, and nearly 2,000 years of lives changed through advancement in civilization and modern inventions, due mainly to Christianity, all go to legitimize our meaning and purpose and what we do and say and trying to tell others about Christ and what we are saved from. And what we are saved from is eternal punishment in hell for rejection of God and not believing in him. So that was the end of my answer. Next, I had a truth just for the record, but we're running out of time. So I will have to leave you with what we've already covered, and we will get back to this next week. There's still a lot here, but I hope you have had a good Thanksgiving, and I hope you stay true in the Word, true to God, true to your faith. Tell somebody about Jesus. God bless.
Thanks for joining us here today at the Chaplain's Corner. We hope today that you've been inspired and encouraged to learn more about God's Word, to step out in faith and strengthen your walk with the Holy Spirit. If you're not sure what a personal relationship with Jesus Christ means and you would like to, please contact this station and leave your information so I can discuss what that means with you personally. And that number is 702-731-5588. That's 702-731-5588. And if you're looking for a great home church, come join us on Sunday mornings at First Baptist Church on 4400 West Oakey Boulevard, where Christ is honored and the Bible is preached. This is Chaplain Randall, and until next time, may God keep you in His loving care. Shalom, and God bless you.